Hello everyone, welcome to my little paintbrush. My name is Miss Cami and I'm so happy you're here today to paint Bluey with me. We all love Bluey. My kids just watched the latest episodes. It's been a whole thing in my house, so I'm glad you're here. We're gonna have a lot of fun today. Hopefully you have our paint kit, because if you do, you have all the same supplies I'm going to be using today. If you don't have our paint kit, just grab some things that you have available to you and let's have a good time together, because creating should be fun and enjoyable and stress-free. So just be sure to relax and enjoy the process. I'm going to keep a pretty steady pace while we paint. So if I'm going too fast for you, feel free to pause this video. You can rewind it to review certain steps. You can fast forward it if I'm going too slow for you. That does happen with some of our little kids. So just kind of go at your pace and don't feel rushed or slowed down by me, okay? And take as much time as you need. If it takes you a couple hours to do this, no problem, okay? I've got 3 brushes today on hand. I'm probably gonna focus on using my flat and my detail, but I do have a round here at my station just in case I need it for smaller spaces. I like to have it available to me, but this painting, if you've got a flat and a detail, you should be totally set and good to go. I also have 2 jars of water. Make sure you have a jar or a cup. I like to have 2, so I always have clean water on hand. Sometimes that's confusing for our smaller artists, so a jar or cup of water is great. And let me show you my paint. So you can see I've separated my white into 3 piles. I'll show you on this camera. That's really important to do. That way we don't contaminate all of our white in our first step. So if you can separate them, I've got 3 nice size piles, but even if you have, 3 small piles and you still have some white left that you can add to later, that's totally fine. Just kind of separate it for yourself. That way you're not contaminating all of your white, because we love white. We use white constantly. All right, let's jump in and get started. I'm going to grab my flat brush. I'm going to get it wet in some water. That'll loosen up the bristles, but it will also provide water for my paint, which is crucial with acrylic paint. It needs water, especially these hot summer days. Our paint's going to dry really fast. So let's go ahead and start in our background, okay? My background for Bluey is a really light pink. So I've got my pink here on the plate, and I'm going to take a nice big scoop of white over to my pink and just set it there. And you see how I just kind of pull pink into that pile of white, little bits at a time. So I don't need a ton. I'm just kind of mixing it little bits at a time until I get the shade that I'm happy with. Our background isn't huge because we've really zoomed in on Bluey, which is super fun. So you don't need a ton. Just mix what you need. And as soon as you have it, the color that is speaking to you, go ahead and fill in your background around Bluey. And we're going to do our best to stay outside of Bluey, especially since we have that pink background. Bluey is blue. If we mix those together, of course, we're going to get purple. So we want to do our best to stay out of Bluey. However, as we are learning, and even those of us that have painted for years, like myself, sometimes we still make those mistakes. We still, go inside of the lines or outside of the lines. So be kind to yourself. If you happen to get paint inside of Bluey, there's a few things you can do. If you have like a wet paper towel on hand, you can kind of dab it out. If you have a Clorox wipe, that's my favorite, because the alcohol in those wipies will eat and break down the paint and get it off your canvas really quick. Or you can do the old-fashioned way, let it dry, and then cover it up. So lots of options. I tell the artists all the time, you can't mess up your painting. It's pretty forgiving, so just embrace it and enjoy it. So I'm not painting on a canvas, and maybe you're not either, but if you are, we encourage you to wrap your edges. That just means to go around the sides of your canvas so that you have a nice completed piece of art when you're finished. That's a personal choice, but we like to encourage that because we paint with a lot of littles, and they'll be hanging their paintings in their room on a shelf or on their wall, and it just really completes it. I get artists ask me all the time, well, Miss Cami, I see paintings all the time by professional artists that their edges aren't wrapped. And I tell them, well, a lot of times artists will choose not to, but that's typically because they plan on framing their art. So wrap them if you don't plan on framing that's my rule of thumb. Okay, so we've got our background in, and just to add some fun dimension to our background, I'm gonna keep the background color on my brush and then put the corner of it in white paint. And I'm gonna just add this glow, if you will, around Bluey. And this is fun because a couple of reasons. It kind of trains the eye of the viewer to go straight to Bluey, because we're kind of highlighting Bluey, right? Where sometimes I say it's like you're putting a halo around your subject. So it's fun in that sense, but it also really breaks up that flat background. And this is a good way for little kids to start learning to blend, because it's a super forgiving way to learn. It's not, it can be super chunky, it can be super light. They can add a little bit, they can add a lot. They're not going to ruin anything. And it's just a good starting point to learn those blends. So I'm going to go around Bluey, and this one is especially a good painting for this because Bluey's basically this square, so it's kind of fun to do. Awesome. Bluey's in there, or the background's in. Background's around Bluey. So I'm going to wash my brush, really swish, and go to the bottom of your jar when you're washing, or your cup, and kind of do zigzags on the bottom. If your water is not turning any color at all, you're probably not washing it well enough. And kids especially, you guys will want to just stick it in there and just go on the top, because we're smaller, so it's hard to go all the way down. So work on that, kind of get that all the way down. Okay, let's work on Bluey's snout and the inside of our triangle ears. Those are going to be a really light brown. So this time I'm going to take just a touch of brown. It doesn't take a lot. I'm going to come over here to a pile of white. The smaller pile I have left, I might add a little more white. See how I'm just adding little bits? If I were to get a big scoop and go to an entire pile, I would run out of my whites really quickly, or I would make more paint than I need to use. So those are just really good things to learn as you're starting out with painting, really good habits to kind of understand how much paint you need. So you can tell my shade, it's pretty light, and I'm adding a little bit at a time because I don't want to go too dark. And I think I'm happy with this shade right here. A little tip is that your paint will dry darker on your canvas than it appears on your plate or your palette. So always kind of lean towards the lighter side. Okay, so we're painting the inside of the ear, so we've got these triangle shapes. And we're starting here before we do the sides, the outsides of the triangle shapes. That way if we get this light color out of the lines, that darker color will cover it up. And now we're going to do this big, I call it a snout. I don't know. If I had a bunch of littles with me, little kids, they would correct everything I say. I love it because they keep me on track. We're going to fill this in, go right over if you have our pattern or you've got our paint kit. Go right over that pencil line, and don't worry too much about that. And of course this will be black, so you can tell I'm not thinking too much about perfection when it comes to going inside that triangle so much, that nose, because it'll be black and it'll cover right up. I do want to be careful when it comes to the eyeballs, because those are going to be white, and if I can avoid painting them, because my canvas is white, and if I can just avoid that altogether, that'll be awesome. And I won't have to fight any colors, you know, trying to cover it up. So do your best with the eyes to stay out of them. But again, like we always say, it's okay. I'm gonna wash my brush again. I like to start, if I can, with the lighter colors and move into the dark colors, especially for our little artists, because as you know, we're not perfect on cleaning our brush yet. This eliminates some of the contamination that might happen with our dark colors. So let's find our lightest colors of Bluey, which is the belly, the little paws. It almost looks like she's got gloves on, and the eyebrows. Those are our lightest shades of blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of my dark blue, and I'm going to mix some light. I'm going to make some really light blue. Now it's okay if you make a big pile of this, because we're just going to add blue to that as we darken the shades on Bluey. Bluey has 3 shades of blue, okay? And we don't have all 3, we have to make them. So we're going to start with our lightest. This is really light, really light blue. You can't, you know, like I said, veer on the lighter side. And you see I've used up my entire pile of white here, but that's okay because I'm going to add my darker blue to it as I go into my other shades. So this is totally fine. So here we've got a light blue. Let's start in our eyebrows. Bluey's got some nice eyebrows, right? Some nice big eyebrows. They're shaped kind of like jelly beans. Nice big eyebrows. Another reason why I like to start with the lighter shades of Bluey first is if you go outside of these lines into other parts of Bluey, we're using all blues here, so it's okay because the darker shades of blue will cover it up. So we're just doing the best we can. And you'll notice I'm still using my flat. I told you in the beginning I have a round available, a medium-sized round available if I want to use it, but I just haven't felt the need to yet. But at any time, if you're like, I don't feel in control of my brush and I want to switch it, you can switch it. I find that the newer we are to painting, the more a smaller brush feels in control. Even though as you have experience, it's funny, you'll find that the bigger brushes you feel more secure with. So I'm gonna do our cute little paws. And again, just go right over the pencil marks if you have our paint kit. And you should still be able to see those lines. If not, we'll paint them together and we'll figure it out. So, you know, no stress. I'll do this cute one over here. These paws are my favorite part of this painting. I love them so much. They're so cute. They're a little tricky, but I just taught this in studio not too long ago. Actually, we've done a few classes and the kids have done amazing. So I'm sure that your paws will turn out fantastic. Okay, so we've got our light blue in, our lightest shade of blue. So now we're gonna go a shade darker. So now I'm gonna get, I don't have to wash my brush because it's got blue in it. I'm gonna get a big scoop of blue and I'm gonna mix it with the same mixture I was using before, because I need that white. I need that white for coverage. It's really important. But I'm gonna just mix that together. You see really quickly with just one nice scoop, I have a darker shade of blue. I'm gonna add water to it. So I just dipped my brush in water and loosened it up. It's so important, you guys, to understand that your paint has to have water. It doesn't come out of the jug or the bottle or the tube or the cup ready to paint. It needs water. And so don't be afraid to utilize that. It'll really help as you create and eliminate a lot of stress for you. So we're going to start in between Bluey's eyes. Got like this triangle shape. Again, we're going to be as careful as we can around those eyeballs. And we're going to be careful around the eyebrows as well. There are going to be some black lines here too. We're going to do some outlining. So, you know, there's going to be that kind of forgiveness where it comes to clean lines. So if it's not looking exactly the way you want it right now, it's okay. We're going to clean it up. We're going to have some time to clean it up here in a little bit. Especially like you see, there'll be a black line right there and around the eyes. So just keep rolling with it, okay? And now the second part of Bluey, that's the shade, is the body underneath the eye patches, okay? So we're just gonna come along here. And this gets a little tricky because we have paws to go around, eye patches, the snout. We have a lot more to be careful with. And this is when maybe another size brush would feel a lot more comfortable to you. So by all means, switch it up. Switch it up if you need that. I mostly enjoy using my big brush, but everyone is different. I'm going to go as slowly as we can around all of these sections, trying our best to stay out of the areas we've already painted. I always have to remind myself and our younger artists at times that it's not a race. You don't have to complete this in a certain amount of time, especially if you're painting at home. That's what's so great about our paint kits and painting at home is you're not in a timed class. You've got all the time in the world. You have today and tomorrow and the next day, and you can finish this on your own time. So don't feel like you have to go fast. Don't feel like it's a race to the finish line. I told you in the beginning, you don't have to finish exactly when I do. You just do your own thing. And go around the belly, that lighter shade of blue. I might switch my brush to go around my little paws because that gets tricky. But as you can see, I'm going to do as much as I can with my big brush. This will also eliminate brush strokes if you keep your big brush as long as possible. So we've got a dark blue spot that'll go right there. So we're not going to paint that. We are going to paint around these cute gloves. They look like gloves on Bluey, huh? So I have to admit that I called Bluey a boy for the longest time until I created this, because I didn't really watch Bluey with my kids, and so I didn't realize Bluey is a girl. And I don't know why, but I still say him. And when I taught this, of course, the kiddos let me know, Miss Cammie, you are incorrect. So we've got one paw done. Maybe I can do it all with this big brush. I've gotten this far, so maybe I'll just keep going. These paws will have black lines around them. So, you know, if you're like, I'm not going to get as close to my light blue. That's okay. They're going to be outlined, and you'll be surprised at how much those black lines clean up your painting. Oh, we did it. Okay, so there's another patch, little spot right here, but it's like underneath this arm. So we got to like finish this arm, and then this is tricky. And we got to fill in this, but leave room for that little patch. Little spot, I mean. Make sure we get all the blue up in there. I think we did it. Okay, all right. Smooth out any clumps. Sometimes we get lots of clumps when we're going around things like that. All right, we have our last shade of blue. We are cruising. Depending on how much paint you're using, how much water you're using, all that, you might need another layer of blue. So if you feel that way, if you're like, I want to paint another layer, pause this video and go for it. I'm gonna just keep rolling. Another big scoop, right? Huge scoop of blue. We still want to mix it. We still want some of that white to help us with coverage, but we definitely want our darkest shade of blue, and we want that variety. We want that comparison so you can look at it and go, this is light, this is a little darker, this is the darkest. So make sure, even though you're mixing it with white, that you're keeping it really dark, okay? All right, I'm gonna wash my brush, even though I don't have to, like we're still using blues. I'm gonna wash it because my paint is getting clumpy on it. Partly because I have all these lights around me, so they're really drying up my paint fast, and partly because it's just really warm outside. So, you know, sometimes you have to do that. So I'm just gonna mix in some of my water, make sure my blue is nice and thinned out and ready for me. Make sure it's not clumpy on my brush. Okay, here we go. So we're gonna do our ears and then those big patches around the eyes, okay? So here we go. Try and make sure we're going around those eyebrows. We worked hard on those eyebrows. We don't want to get our paint in it, right? And then again, we are trying our very best around these eyeballs. It's tricky. Painting circles is tricky. Painting around circles is tricky. Circles, man. They are a whole thing. So we're just going to do our best. All right, coming down around our eye. See how I slow down a lot. Really slow down my brush stroke. This is when you need to remind yourself constantly. I don't need to beat Miss Cammie. I don't need to beat my friend sitting next to me or my parent. I just need to be proud of my painting. And I need to do my very best. That's it. All right. And one thing that's super fun, you know, because we teach so much, so many kiddos, we have gotten to see all different kinds of Blueys. They all leave looking like Bluey, but a little bit different. So that's a lot of fun. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of go back over, make sure it's nice and covered, because the darker the color that we use, the more layers it needs. That's why we say add your white, add your white, add your white, because it helps with coverage. So this is pretty dark. So if you feel like you need to add more layers, just go for it. I almost forgot that we have another side of the ear here. Almost forgot that. All right. So I'm going to come up. So the angles that I have as I'm painting, really tricky because I have to keep my canvas up flat for you guys to see it. But if you can turn your canvas around as you paint, totally do that. Kind of flip it from side to side, so that you don't have to get all these weird angles with your brush. You can just kind of flip it around. I would be doing that at home, trust me. I rarely leave my canvas upright on an easel. I'm always flipping it around. So it doesn't have to sit upright the whole time. All right, let's get these eyeballs surrounded as best we can. Go around all this stuff, all these tricky things. Eyebrows and eyeballs, right? If you have gotten paint in your eyeballs, just wait till that paint dries and go back and add white to it. Just clean it up. It really is okay. It's good practice, right? To try not to get paint in certain places. It's like when we practice to color inside the lines, right? It's practicing, but practice means that we're not perfect yet, and that's okay. Everybody has improvements to make. Bluey is coming together. Isn't this crazy how it's just like a few steps and then it just starts to pop? Get these last few paint strokes in there and then we can start on our details. Those are fun because that's when our painting really wakes up. Okay, so go back if you need to over some of this blue. That's a personal choice. If you're like, oh, it's fine, I'm not bothered by seeing my brush strokes or anything like that. The great thing when we create is we're creating something for ourselves. You know, so it's like we can be the judge of how it looks in the end and if we want it to have a certain look or not. I always encourage people to stay true to those instincts. You know, if you're like, oh, I really want the eyebrow to be a little more this shape, then do it. You'll love your painting so much more if you stick to those instincts. Because that's your view of beauty and you should stick to it. All right, let's go down and fill in our little patches. Remember I told you we had two, not patches, I keep saying patches, but our little spots. Two little spots. One's right here under this arm. And the other one's under this arm. I've got some tape holding my surface in place, but you'll see it. It's just in this corner. Okay. Oh, got some in my arm. Okay, so get your little patches, your little spots. You guys know what I'm trying to say, right? Look at that. Look at that. Let's rinse our brush. Really good. We are cruising and it's looking amazing. I hope you love yours. I hope you're feeling super happy about how yours looks. We're gonna go ahead and dive into our black now. Really loosen it up. It's been sitting there now for a little bit, so make sure you put some water in there and loosen it up. You know, it's really hard to find that balance between loose paint and drippy paint. We don't want drips, but that's why it's important that you take the water and you mix it in your paint. If you don't mix it, then all that water will be trapped in your brush. And then when you go to paint, it'll drip. Okay, so we're gonna do our eyes and our nose. This is fun because this eye literally just fades right into the nose. So this is an easy one. We just have to do like a half oval circle and then we can paint our nose. And this nose is like a slice of pizza. Upside down triangle. Oh, I got some black on Bluey. How sad. We'll fix it. Had some black on my palm. All right, so around, make sure I don't have that black anymore. And down this way. It's like that rounded edge upside down triangle. Okay, so we've got one. And then we'll do our second one. So I'm using my big brush, huh? So that might be kind of scary for you. Use your little one, guys. That little brush is calling your name and you're thinking, I am not going to fill in these big eyes or these little eyes with that big brush. Just switch it. Just switch it. There's no right or wrong brush to fill these eyes in with. So we got our eyes. Real quick, I'm gonna jump over, I'm gonna grab that medium brush we haven't used yet, and I'm just gonna fix my little mistake here. If I can, just add some paint right there. I might need to add a bit of white. Sometimes you have to have white in order to cover things. So I'm gonna add a nice chunk of white, and then maybe I'll come back over it in a minute. And then thankfully I have some of this blue shade left, so I can just come in like, just like that. Okay, now we're gonna do our line work. This is where it gets kind of tricky. And while I talk to you about it, I'm gonna add a lot of water using my detail brush to my black paint. Because this is what I want my black paint to be, kind of an inky texture. I like to say melted ice cream. It's not water. It still has a little bit of give to it, but it's pretty loose, okay? So I'm going to add until I have the texture that I need. That's so important, guys, because it'll just flow so much better onto your canvas. I promise. It will make the biggest difference. So I added my water, and now let's do our lines, okay? Lines are all about pressure. If we push really hard, our little brush can give us quite a thick line. If we don't press too hard, we can get a pretty thin line. So just remember your pressure. Let's start up top, and let's start on our ears. I'm gonna go down ears. This one I'm gonna just try and keep my brush going all the way down the side of Bluey. Go as far as you can. It's super tricky, but I believe in you. We're going to outline our eyebrows. This is where I told you you could clean up your eyebrows, because we're going to outline them. And the choice to outline them was just so that they really pop. They're kind of right up there next to that light brown color. And so we really want them to stand out. So we're going to outline them. Another trick or tip to outlining is don't pick up your brush, or I should say pick it up as little as possible. The more you can go without lifting your brush off of your surface, the smoother your line will be. So that's also a good tip. So we're going to finish our little forehead off here. Separate those. And then same thing on this side. We're going to see how long we can go before we have to lift our brush up and reload. And if your paint is nice and thinned out, you'll be surprised at how far you can go before you have to lift that brush up. We'll finish our forehead on that side too. Oh, can you see her coming together? So fun. All right, we've got to go around our eyes, guys. We just have to do it. So I'm going to make sure I've got some paint ready. My drippy paint is dripping everywhere. So I'm going to make sure I have some more here. Take the time to loosen up your paint. Like, really take that seriously, because you'll notice a huge, huge, huge difference in your ability to make little lines. Okay, so let's start on this eye right here because it's the easier one. We don't have to do the full circle. And let's just do the best we can. So we're going to go around. Again, the longer I can go without picking up my brush, the better. That's when I'll get my smoothest line. Okay. All right, we did that one. We made it. This one, let's do it half and half, okay? So let's go rainbow, and then let's pick it up and do like a deep frowny face. Concentration, we might not make it. Close. My brush stroke broke a little bit, so I got to go back over it. Just don't brush back and forth when you're doing lines. It's just not gonna, it's not gonna be good. Okay, let's go between the eyeballs and onto our cute little nose. Now this is fun. This is a fun step because we get to put the smile in. Actually, should I? Let's see. Miss Cami has to fix her light brown snout. It just has to happen. I just feel like it does. So let's put some white right there. And let's go ahead and do our smile. So this is fun. We're going to start right here. We're going to come down, follow that, and then go into the smile. So it's kind of a squared off, right? Squared off smile right there. Oh yeah, and then we can put this really fun shape at the end of the smile. There she is. All right, let's finish up some of our other lines. So let's go ahead and go elbow. The rest of us, we're gonna have to do those paws, guys. We're gonna have to paint our cute paws. So don't let it scare you. Just embrace the paws. If you've lost your lines and you're like, I can't see my paws and I can't do this freehand, it's freaking me out, you can get a pencil and you can pencil these sort of, they're like fluffy cloud shapes, right? You can pencil those in. That way you have an idea of where they are and it won't be as scary for you to just freehand. So that's an option too. But you should be able to see, these. It just depends on how thick your paint was and all that good stuff. Got this cute little thumb here. Oh, see those paws? They are really the best part. All right, Bluey. Let's give her some highlights. Let's make sure our biggest brush is super, super clean. You can check that cleanliness in clean water if you have it. Really make sure it's clean because we're just going to take a clean, damp brush to do our highlights. So I've got a clean brush. I've squeezed some of the water out of it, but not all of it. It's damp. I'm going to put the corner of it in white paint like this. And that corner of my brush is going to be my highlighting corner. See, I'm going to go put a rainbow in Bluey's belly. That's my first highlight. I'm going to put a few highlights in our little, I got too much white on that one, in our little paws, our elbow. Cute, just be careful if your black is still wet not to not to accidentally bump into that. Let's go up to our eyebrows. It never fails whenever we start to highlight in our classes. The kids always say, "Miss Cami, do I have to highlight?" Of course, my answer is no, because it is your painting. However, I always say no, but I do encourage you to. Highlights wake up your painting. It brings it to light and life. So we're going to do some in the ears there. I need a little more water on my brush to finish my highlights. Again, just a damp brush, corner of it in white. We're going to do a nice highlight coming off this side of Bluey all the way down. And if you have to go over it again, totally okay. Keep your brush stroke going the same direction. That way, remember I said the same thing when we were doing lines, our outlining. You don't want to go up and down. You want to kind of keep everything going in the same direction. I just want to get it thicker right there. My paint is seizing up really fast. Okay. Got that highlight. Let's put another one in our forehead. Just adding some light. And then we have a really important one in our nose. And this one is so important because it separates our nose from that eyeball. It puts our nose in the foreground. See that? So now our nose is in front and it's not just one blob. Turn your brush upside down. Dip it in white paint like this until you get a nice chocolate chip dripping off the bottom. And then dot that reflection of light in each of Bluey's eyes. Oh my goodness. She's cute. I'm gonna go over this one more time because I'm super OCD. Do you love her? I love her. She's so stinking cute. I can hear her talking as I paint this because I listen to it all the time when my kids watch it. Okay, so our last step, and probably the most important one of this entire class and paint video, is to sign your name. You want to own your art. You want to say, I did this and I'm proud of it. So sign your name. Thank you so much for painting with me. I hope you love your painting. We would love to see it. So share it with us on social media at My Little Paintbrush. Send us your pictures. If you liked this video, give me a thumbs up. I would appreciate it so much. And I can't wait to paint with you next time. Bye guys.